All right, ladies and gentlemen, an important chat that's coming up. This will be centered on modernizing unstructured data and fueling transformation to hybrid cloud. Well, as Biswajit said, that he'll be shortly seeing you right back on the screen. Of course, you know that he's going to be leading the conversation forward as the moderator. So let's welcome firstly Biswajit Das, the Director Advisory Analytics AI Data Lake CVM from KPMG. Biswajit, thank you very much for joining us again. And of course, you will be in conversation with, let's warmly welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the APAC Solution Lead Content and Data Intelligence from Hitachi Vantara. Sudharsan, Aravamuthan, it's over to you, two gentlemen right there.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another interesting session in today's brilliant the Economic Times Cloud Summit. Right, I think it's been a great day till now, and we have a lot more to come. I seem to get a lot of my talking points from memes nowadays, unfortunately. And just this morning, someone sent me one about how when God was asked how he plans on solving the water distribution issue for the world, he says, "I'm thinking of having a cloud-based system." Right. So if the Almighty God Himself is pointing the way, who are we to, take a different road? And in the old days, just like weather used to be a hot topic of conversation, I think the same is the case in all technology rooms nowadays. Cloud continues to dominate boardrooms and digital data and analytics forums, right? And it's 2021. Obviously, by now we know how the cloud has revolutionized how organizations adapt and adopt to technologies, infrastructure ecosystems, etc., by turning this entire capex opex equation on its head. And what we organizations are also rapidly realizing is that the value that a cloud ecosystem can bring to you is much beyond infra. It's in terms of capabilities, it's in terms of tools which are all stitched and integrated together, along with the flexibility of choice and scale on demand. Right? Today it's going to be a brilliant conversation. I have with me Sudharsan. Sudharsan, hi, welcome.
Hi.
Sudharsan is the solution head, Apex solution lead for data intelligence for Hitachi Vantara. Right, Sudharsan has spent what, more than 9 years now in various.
Yeah, it's more than 9 years, wonderful 9 years with Hitachi Vantara. Quite, it's been quite exciting working across different functions. But across all those functions, primarily is to help customers with their digital transformation initiatives. So wonderful 9 years at Hitachi Vantara. Yeah.
I know, Sudharshan, and I do know you're a very keen reader and a gardener. Hopefully, when we were all locked down, one of the upsides was that you were able to do a little bit more than you would normally do in terms of tending to your garden, reading, etc.
Sure. I mean, yes. I mean, gardening is something that that developed, I would say, quite recently, and especially from when you're from Bangalore, the garden city. Like there's this famous saying, you drop a pole and a tree grows out of it in Bangalore. So Bangalore being a gardening city, I mean, you tend to get into that habit, and lockdown really did help me kind of tend more towards gardening, getting to know about various aspects of it. So it was a wonderful experience. Yeah.
I know, and you, while you're in Bangalore, I'm in Gurgaon, right? And while I know a fireside is just a moniker for what we do, but believe me, today it's a gloomy, cold day. An actual fireplace would have been very welcome here right now. Not so much in Bangalore, I guess. But anyways, to come to the topic, right? I think there are certain phrases that have become almost like a buzz that one hears consistently, right? And as a consultant, me and my tribe are many times guilty of coining many of those terminologies. But a lot of organizations usually describe their culture as being data driven. And I know many organizations whose stated ambition is to become the same. And some of them are already at some stages of this journey, right? If you look at the tech that really powers this ambition, it's mostly the ABC of data, algorithm, big data, and cloud. And while some opinion seems to be that these three are actually in silos, I tend to think that they're very symbiotic, right? They have a very symbiotic relationship. You need to be able to drive all of these algorithmic developments. You need a lot of data, preferably varied and coming at you in actual time. And you need the compute muscle to process it when you want, right? Meaning sporadic demands and peaks, and to be able to run off all of this which comes from the cloud. So therefore, there's a very symbiotic relationship between the A and the B and the C. But that's just the shiny, visible part of the iceberg, isn't it? I mean, underneath all of that, and I keep saying this, a large data system is equally a gold mine which can be explored, discovered, etc., etc. But it is as much a ticking time bomb also, and things can and will possibly go wrong. And that's why I like this whole idea that Hitachi, along with Ed Tittle, right? He talks about this idea of data fabrics, which is all the streams of various types of data making up the weft, and the controls and tools making up the weave, to finally make this beautiful tapestry of information and insight. And of course, there's this there's the coupled with the data version of DevOps, the
Yep.
CI/CD data management. So
Right.
data ops, which gives you this entire repeatability, speed, quality, and the ability to scale exponentially.
Right.
Hitachi, of course, you have a framework around
Correct.
how to go about managing all of this humongous amount of data and the complexity that comes with it. We would love for you to expand on that.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Biswajit. So I think the first and foremost that we need to kind of understand is the challenge, that we have today. And in my discussions with various customers, analysts, such as yourself, there is a broad consensus across our, customer segments that essentially data is very diverse, more so now than ever, right? And it's distributed as well. It's distributed from the core to edge, across. It is also siloed across applications, clouds, and internal tools. Sometimes it's locked away, very difficult to get to, especially when you want to get that crucial insight. And more importantly, what we call as dark data, right? I mean, dark data is basically sometimes organizations struggle to know what kind of data they have and where it is, right? So this essentially enhances, or I would say brings that whole complexity of being able to discover and prepare the right data for analytics, where then you can be able to get insights, out of that data. So the process of transforming data into value is becoming, very difficult. Now, added to that, you have the whole aspect of governance and compliance requirements, that are growing. So looking at these challenges, data ops, to simply summarize, is basically, right data at the right place at the right time. Now, obviously, we simplified it in a statement, but more importantly, we need to kind of go through and see, what is the framework that organizations can adopt. Now, obviously, me coming from the digital infrastructure standpoint, when we look at data, we're saying, okay, is there a framework that we can evolve? And the framework that we have, which we put up cross successfully, and a lot of customers really like it, like the approach. They've adopted it. We've gone ahead and helped a lot of customers transform and modernize, and accelerate the digital transformation using this framework, which we call as SEAM. And SEAM basically stands for store, enrich, activate, and monetize, right? So essentially, these are the elements of the SEAM. Now, when we look at the store aspect, what we are looking at is how can we store data at the most optimal cost in the right repositories. And we know data today largely in organizations is divided into structured and unstructured data set. Obviously, you have semi-structured as well. We are looking at talking about edge to cloud to core infrastructure. We're looking at how can you manage this data set that is there across this diverse patterns, and how do you protect, how do you build resiliency, and especially during pandemic and post-pandemic, resiliency has become an important topic where customers are looking at non-stop IT services. So that is the SEAM aspect. The SEAM aspect is really looking at your infrastructure, looking at your repositories, looking at your on-premise, looking at the capability of extending it to hybrid cloud scenarios, and addressing the storage, the protection, and the management aspect of data. Once you have that, once you've figured that out, then you would want to basically look at data agility. what I would call as the intelligent data operations, is basically how do you enrich this data that you have? I mean, how do you classify this data? How do you catalog this data? And that is where aspects such as working with metadata becomes very important. It's just not about data, but the useful information about the data is stored in the metadata. So enriching metadata, classifying, indexing, being able to search, all of that becomes and contributes to that data agility, which we call as part of the enrich step in the process. And then you would want to move into the activate. Activate is more of laying out a pipeline across the organization by able to discover data at various sources, the diverse data that is coming in. You're able to integrate it not only from an on-premise, but even from a hybrid cloud standpoint. You're able to create that orchestration as well, which is where you're going to go ahead and activate that aspect of data. And the final step in that the scene, the M is very important, which is essentially providing you that business agility and providing you that data-driven solution, which is monetizing the data or the insights that you get out of the data. So essentially, it's all about analyzing, optimizing, and innovating. In some cases, you're driving new revenue streams through that monetized aspect. So this is the whole framework of what I would call a SEAM, and we've been very successful with our customers to take this framework to them, and go through this approach, more so from the infrastructure modernization that customers would undertake. Yeah. And I would like to add here, Biswajit, that's not us alone. We work with various ISVs and partners, so we have a very strong ecosystem, with ISVs, OEMs, and the various industry players, leaders. We work along with them to help our customers in this journey. Yeah.
I think two things really jump out to me. Number one is what you said last, right? I think there is nobody who is successful in doing this at scale alone anymore, right? We all
Correct.
have to be part of a larger community ecosystem. We're all contributing because this is rapidly evolving, right? And we are all contributing to each other's knowledge base, and
Yeah.
that's the way it should be. The other thing I really liked is, as a framework, right? This takes care of, generally when you walk into an organization, they want to do digital transformation. All the conversation is around two parts, right? One is on the consumption layer, on the output layer, saying, "Oh my God, what am I going to get as an output, as a use case, as a model, etc." And the second is on the actual platform itself, saying what storage, what compute, blah blah blah, etc. A lot of people, the very important factor which drive data exploration and data discoverable, right, making data discoverable and democratic, which is your entire layer of data management and data ops, right, is sometimes a byproduct of necessity, right? When you build it and suddenly realize that it's like my mom's storeroom, which had stuff packed into it, and when you go looking for a certain object, you would find another 20 brilliantly beautiful things, but not the one that you're looking for, right? And that's how a lot of large data ecosystems become. And this, when it's there, a part of the framework from first principles, it just allows you to really explore and, like you said, monetize the value of data. And one of the big things about monetizing data is our inability as large enterprises to monetize unstructured data, because unstructured data itself has become a misnomer, right? Many people associating it only with images, videos, but honestly, even if it's a transcript of an interaction between a customer and a call center agent, right, that's still unstructured, but that has very, very rich insights. Imagine being able to sit through all of those recordings to figure out voice of customer. Unfortunately, that just isn't physically possible, right? And there are many such other examples. And I do know you're doing a lot of work around in this place, and would love to hear from you about the urban legend that unstructured data has become.
Yeah. So, it's very interesting, that you say that, and especially when the topic of discussion is primarily around cloud, like the way that the event is today. Most of them gravitate towards understanding cloud as, aspects like catering to structured side of the world. But what they miss out, and this which is where vendors like us, analysts like you, draw the attention, is saying that, hey, unstructured data is actually growing manyfold over the structured data set. And it's interesting to know that various analysts have said that 80% of the data that is going to be generated by 2025 is typically going to be in the unstructured side of the world. Now, having said that, modernizing unstructured data becomes a very important aspect, for large enterprises across the board. The reason is that the unstructured data use cases, like you said, has evolved. I mean, it's evolved from traditional, files, images, videos, and all of those kind of stuff into aspects like big data analytics, into aspects like really providing high performance, low latency, aspects to tier one workloads that are generating this unstructured data sets. More importantly, what we see is that, modernizing that unstructured data, classifying, enriching becomes an important aspect. So from Hitachi's standpoint, we are up in the forefront in that race to kind of help our customers modernize unstructured data right from the core to the edge, to the cloud. And primarily, what we see is that if I talk about from an infrastructure standpoint, the adoption of object storage has become very prominent today in most of the enterprises. And object storage previously was more relegated to use cases like backup and archive and all of those aspects. But today, object storages have evolved, like the ones that we have, which we call as HCP Cloud Scale. The point is this: that the object storages that we have are more cloud native, microservices driven approach, where we disaggregate the compute from the data, capable of scaling both the performance as well as the capacity into exabytes, providing high performance file system in front of the object storage for multi-protocol access to handle use cases like cloud native workload, like containerization, which is becoming an important topic today. And also, the object storage becomes important for handling unstructured data set in the big data analytics. So if I look at streaming analytics, batch analytics, if I look at various analytical tool sets, the underlying repository today is getting replaced from local storage systems to, let's say, an S3 enabled object or content platform. And along with this, then you can enable various use cases. Like what we do with Hitachi is we bring in this, the capability around S3 object storage, which is massive, scalable, which has really good availability, providing you 15 nines of availability. And after that, what we do is we're able to get on different use cases like enterprise file sync and share, which has become very important, especially during the pandemic, where you're enabling digital workplace initiatives, enterprise file sync and share, modernizing remote offices, branch offices. So all of this is a use case that we're driving in the unstructured, side of the world, Biswa.
I mean, I think to the whole idea, I think I keep saying this, right? My simile to this is structured and historical data, for that matter, is like wine, right? It's very rich, it's got gravity, it's got depth, but unstructured data, and especially most unstructured data, will come in real time. It's like milk. It's very nourishing. It's very contextual. It is opportunistic, but it is perishable, right? And therefore, how we handle that, I think, and the good thing is today most organizations have realized that these data workloads cannot just be placed in one part of the infrastructure. They'll be all over the hybrid workplace. They'll be at edge, at core, etc. And how do you go about doing this? Sudarshan, I've just been given time check, 30 seconds. According to you, a very, very good, successful story of where unstructured data has been really leveraged.
We have various success stories, but if I were to kind of, talk about like the modern use cases that we are having, which we're seeing in customer segment, is basically customers ingesting large amounts of streaming analytics and using unstructured data, and especially using object storage there to not only cater to the massive volume and velocity of data that is coming in, but also cater to the performance. So that is why modern object storages such as Hitachi platform, content platforms, have evolved from traditional, use cases to addressing high performance modern workloads such as streaming analytics. And one specific customer use case that we know is basically, typically addressing this, that is they're using the object storage to be a massive repository for the streaming analytics, and then they're able to perform various analytics and get that whole insights out of that. So they're leveraging the full SIEM model by using the Hitachi content platform. Yes.
Thank you, Sudharshan. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to have you here with us. I mean, being a country of more than 1 billion folks, most of whom have access to some device or the other, we generate a mind-boggling amount of data, right? So for those of us who are doing this before it became fashionable, forgive us if we get excited what's currently happening here in this space. When these conversation turns towards the future, we get even more excited. So we are liable to go over our time limit. So forgive us for that, right? But I keep saying this, right? Data in many ways is like money. I mean, to oversimplify, money has no value other than its ability to buy goods and services and the sense of security you get out of the knowledge when you have money, right? And in the same way, data itself is just bits and bytes and pretty much useless till such time as we are able to harness it and wrangle information out of it. And for that, we need to be able to put up a structured ecosystem, like Sudarshan was saying, not just in the infrastructure, not just in the use cases we define, but actually the entire data fabric, the data ops part of it, right? Like you were saying, the SIEM model of it, right? To
Right,
make
right, Biswan, and I would just like to end this by saying this, right? I mean, whatever I spoke, all of the conversation that I'm talking about has a very strong hybrid cloud element to it, because it's not anymore. It's not a binary whether you're on premise or whether you're on public cloud. The world has risen into a multi-cloud, and all the conversation that I'm having is with those deep integrations that our platform offers into that hybrid cloud aspect. So much so that we can bring the services, function as service, cloud services to operate upon the on-premise object storage that is there. So with that, over to you, Biswa. And it was lovely interacting with you, and thank you.
No, I absolutely agree. I think most diverse organizations are waking up to the advantages of having a hybrid ecosystem, whether it's
Correct.
multi-cloud, on-prem, on-cloud. But anyhow, it was brilliant having you here. Thank you everyone who joined in for this fireside. This was a fun chat with Sudarshan. I hope you think so too. There are many
Thank you,
more
Biswa.
interesting interactions lined up. I mean, coming up next is a brilliant fireside with Harry, who's the global CIO for Zoom, and Derek from the World Economic Forum. See you in the main event hall, right? Thank you so much for having us here. Good day. Have a brilliant time.
Thank you, Biswa. Take care. Bye.
Biswajit and Sudharsan, your conversation, I would say, helped us extract insights on modernizing the unstructured data. And I think even the Chittaratis out there are confirming the learnings. If I can quickly go through the tweets that I have over here, Ashish says that hashtag ET Cloud Summit is a wonderful top class event. Thank you, Ashish, if you feel so. And Siddharth Saxena has an insight to share, saying that hashtag ET Unwired, hashtag ET Cloud Summit. The cloud enabled us to implement the same level of enterprise security at a fraction of the cost. The most ignored advantage of cloud implementation. All right, so keep all the learnings coming in, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, since we do believe that cloud is the foundation for the new agile business world, from on-prem to cloud, we're going to be discussing this with an industry stalwart. We'll be right back on the screen. Stay tuned.